If you think that milling your own wheat and baking bread with 100% freshly milled wheat is daunting and intimidating, never fear, because in this video, I'm going to be showing you the easiest bread that you will ever make using 100% freshly milled wheat. And that is a no-knead bread. Good news, no mixer required. You just need a grain mill. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, I teach you all the things about real whole grains from a biblical perspective. I teach you how and why to be milling your grains, baking that bread, and more. I've always wanted to do a no-knead bread using 100% freshly milled wheat, but in my experiments doing it, it's kind of been a task that I've been unable to achieve until now. And now that I have it, I have to say it is so crazy easy. And good news, this actually solves a lot of y'all's issues that you are telling me about. First of all, this bread requires no mixer whatsoever. You just need a way to grind your grains and you're good from there. You just need a bowl and like one of those rubber spatula type things. And then also a Dutch oven. So it's very, very easy to do. It's also a no-knead bread. So it's very simple, no muscle really required to do it either. It also is done in about 3 hours, so you can start this during the day and it's ready to go for supper that night. And this is one loaf of bread. So not everyone is a large family mama like I am. So this kind of solves that problem where you get one decent sized loaf that is great for a meal, maybe for the whole week for you, just all depends. So before we get into this, I forgot when filming this that realized that I did not tell you how much wheat to grind and the type of wheats that I'm using. So I actually found that the best bread that I like is actually using a combination of wheats. And that's basically 2 parts of a hard white wheat and 1 part of a coarse-on wheat. So in this recipe, I actually mill 2 cups of hard white wheat and 1 cup of coarse-on wheat, and that combination just seems to do really, really well. It not only gives me a great flavor, but it also, that coarse-on gives a stretchiness to that dough and a kind of a lightness to it that I really like. Other wheat combinations that you can do is, first of all, you can do just all hard white. You could do maybe a hard white and use soft white wheat instead of the coarse-on. You can try a hard red wheat, but I personally found I wasn't a huge fan of the flavor whenever I did that. So maybe you are, me personally, I was not. And also I found that the hard red came out a little bit more dense than the other type of wheats as well. I also use a Dutch oven in this recipe. So if you do not have a Dutch oven, you can do this just on a typical like sheet pan. I would probably just spritz it a little bit with water before baking if you don't have a Dutch oven to kind of help create that steam effect, but I would still keep it as the same temperatures, same technique of doing it all, just a different way of baking it. And do know that this will be a printable recipe that will be in the description box below, so you can print it out, make notes to whatever works for y'all. So let's get started. All right, so here we are ready to make the bread. Now, first of all, I have learned what I do like to do is I like to go ahead and dissolve the yeast into water. I've done this before where I just added the yeast with the flour, the salt, and the water, and it didn't turn out well. So I find that dissolving the yeast is better. So what you're gonna need is 2 1/4 teaspoons of instant yeast. You can use active yeast, that's fine. It just means it may take a little bit longer to rise. That's totally fine. So we're gonna add this, and I do go ahead and add my salt. I do like 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt. If that's too salty for you, 1 1/2 teaspoons is fine, but I find that 1 3/4 teaspoons for me worked out pretty well, maybe even 2 teaspoons, but we put that there. And then we're adding in 2 cups of warm water. And by warm water, I mean basically like what you would give a baby a bath, that type of warm water. And then we're really gonna dissolve this yeast. Okay, not too worried about my salt dissolving. I'm not worried about that. I'm looking for the yeast to pretty much be dissolved. And then to this, very simple, we're gonna add in our 3 cups of flour. So we're just gonna add 3 cups, and how I like to do it is I just do a measuring cup, I scoop it up, kind of do that, 3 cups like that. There we go, a little bit more. So that's 1, 2, and 3. So this is how much flour I have left over, which may be a little too much for you, but that's okay. I will need a little bit, some for dusting. I may need to add some more flour. I always just like to have a little bit extra. And then if you just have extra, I just put this in a Ziploc bag, put it in my freezer, just label it. And then I use that for, you know, if I need a little bit of extra flour in a recipe, use it for my gravies, whatever type of thing I might just need a little bit of flour for. So then we'll just take this, and I do like to use a spatula. You probably could use a Danish dough hook, but I just find that one of these good old rubber spatulas really gets in there and scrapes it. And then we just start kind of mixing this all in, and it's going to be pretty sticky and wet. All right, and then this is where you kind of have to determine whether you need to add more water. Now, if you're kind of worried, if you are using a different combination of wheats, so if you're not using the exact same wheats that I am, the hard red with the cores on, then you may want to add in just 1.5 cups of water to begin with to see where it's at. And then if it's just too dry, add in some more until you're getting this type of dough, where this type of dough, it is quite wet. I don't know if you can see like the moisture there on my hands. Not dripping wet, but it's quite wet. And yeah, so it's just this big kind of, in a way, a gooey, not gooey type mess. I wish I could describe this better, but this is kind of how it is here. So definitely not a bread dough, obviously falling apart because no gluten development is happening, but I am able to it is able to kind of form into a shape. It's not all over the place. So if it is looking dry, add some more water. And the reason why I like it this wet, so if you've already done normal bread dough, this is certainly wetter than where a typical bread dough is at the kneading state. But the reason I do that is because whole grain flour is thirsty and it's really going to absorb that water. And I don't want this getting too dry. So that's why it is quite wet, very moist. But again, it's able to pretty much stay in some kind of shape. And then that's it. Now, this is where we start. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, and then every 15 minutes, I'm going to do a stretch and fold. And I like to do this 4 times. These are important. I have done this before where I just let it sit here. I did no stretch and folds, and the gluten just did not develop. Whenever I went after it had risen, but then when I went to shape it, it was coming apart pretty much just like this, which tells you that the gluten has not developed. You want a nice stretchy dough. So we're going to leave this here. I'm going to cover this up with saran wrap and then a towel, place it, and then set my timer. And every 15 minutes, I'm going to do stretch and folds, which I will show you. And then we do that 4 times, and then we just let it rise. If you do plan on putting this in the fridge, say have this for the next day, I would do it after you have done the stretch and folds, and then you can prep it to go into the fridge. So let's put saran wrap on this, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes up. So we just uncover this, and now we just do your typical stretch and folds. So as you can see here, I really want to show you this. You may be a little worried because you can see where like there may be a little bit of water pooling around here just a little bit. That's fine. Trust me, it's gonna absorb it, and I still want this to be a wetter dough. So we're just gonna take our hands. You may want to slightly wet your hands. I'm not, because there's obviously enough water. And then we just pull from one side, roll over, twist, pull up, over, pull up, over, pull up, over. There's not much. It's not going to be as easy to pull up and over because we're still developing this gluten. But as you keep doing this, it is going to get easier. So if it breaks, that's okay. You know, just do a little bit. The goal is eventually we'll be able to really stretch just a lot. Okay, and I'm just doing this probably, you know, I probably just did all of that probably like 3 times all around type thing. And then that's it. So you can see that's kind of what my hands look like. So they're wet, but I don't have a ton of dough sticking onto it. That's how we want it. I just shape it back in, cover it back up, and then be back here in another 15 minutes. And again, I don't stress if my saran wrap doesn't recover all the way. That's why we have the towel. All right, second stretch and fold. You can see it's starting to get bubbles, a little risen. And now we just do it again. And it's going to start being far more stretchy a bit sticky. Yeah, this is starting to look good. You can see the dough sticking on my hand. I would wet your hands if it's too sticky, not actually add more flour just yet. And we just do a few more of these, cover it up, see you in another 15 minutes. All right, stretch and fold number 3. And again, just each time you're gonna see where it's getting much easier to work with. It is rising. Okay, it's getting more stretchy. And I do really find that that Corazon that we add to it really helps with the stretch. Because Corazon, you could also probably swap out for einkorn. They're both usually generally the same, but you can see how it's a little wobbly, a little jiggly. All right, and one more after this, and then we'll let it rise. All right, it is time for our last stretch and fold. And let's see how this is looking. All right, this is looking really good. So let's stretch. Again, if it's too sticky, just add a little bit of water to your hands. But this is feeling soft. It is feeling close, more like a typical bread dough. I like how it's a little jiggly in a way. All right, and of course you're able to form it up like this. Okay, and from here, you have a couple options. One is you can just cover this up with plastic wrap and put it in the fridge, and then you can use it the next day. If you're using it the next day, I would just pull it out, be preheating your oven. While that's happening, it's gonna be getting back down a bit more room temperature, things like that, and then you can proceed into what we're gonna do next when we're ready to bake. Otherwise, I'm willing to go ahead and get this ready to start baking today. And so you can either use the bowl that you have, or if you're like me, I do prefer to transfer it over into like one of these type containers, because I'm able to see, I can see it, I can mark it to see how well it has actually risen. Now this is actually going to rise pretty fast because it's already risen a bit. So you just take it and let's see, we're just going to dump it out, and then I just plop it in here. Plop it in here, add whatever dough that I have. Again, this should not be a sticky, gooey mess. If this is falling apart at this rate, the gluten has not developed enough. If it's still like coming apart, you may want to just do a few more stretch and folds until it's actually starting to stretch and stay together. Because I wouldn't go into the rising until it actually gets to that point where you know that gluten has developed. But I do find that after just 4 stretch and folds, for me, that generally is working out pretty well. And so now that I just have that in here, again, because I'm a busy mom with like a ton of stuff on my brain, I even like marking the container roughly of where the bread is to give me a mental idea. So while this is rising, I just cover this back up. We are now going to, this can really depend. So my house is actually colder today here in Florida, and it's like 68 degrees in the house. So this may take a bit longer, but I do find that in about an hour, this is usually ready to bake. You're basically rising this until it's pretty much double in size is what you're going for, until it's double in size. So in about 30 minutes from here. So for me, like, you're gonna have to figure out how long it typically takes for you, but for me, in about an hour, it's ready to bake. Halfway through, I start preheating my oven. Today is actually a colder day. I'm gonna start that now because I'm gonna be putting my Dutch oven in, and that Dutch oven is gonna get very, very hot. And speaking of Dutch ovens, this is the one that I have to say is one of my favorites. This is the Nutrimel Dutch oven. It is beautiful. It's a perfect size for this. I love it. I love its shape. I love everything about it. And it's actually affordable. You don't have to spend like $300 for a really good Dutch oven. And I have a coupon code for y'all. Y'all can get that down below. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this in a cold oven and go ahead and start preheating that oven to 450 degrees. So that's gonna take me anywhere from probably 20, 25 minutes just to preheat. And then this can be sitting in there and getting nice and good and hot, ready for whenever this is ready to be put in here to bake. The hotter this is, the better I find that this bread turns out, because this really helps steams it and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get this in. I have the bread rising, and I'll see you back here in probably about an hour. So again, preheating your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's talk talk about today's sponsor, and that is ta-da, 4 Generations Organic Farms. So I love 4 Generations Organic Farms. They are an excellent source of my organic hard red and hard white wheat berries, along with some others. So right now they are my go-to. Hard red, which is their Butler's Gold, and their Stardust, which is their hard white. Those are my go-to hard red and hard white grains. They do absolutely wonderful, perfect for newbie bakers, very easy to work with. And another thing is I love about 4 Generations is that I'm buying directly from the farmer. They are organic farmers that have been around, well, 4 generations since the late 1800s in Oklahoma. So they are USA grown wheat berries that you can get. They're shipped straight to your house, reasonably priced, and they're organically grown, which means that they're taking care of their soil, regenerative farm practices, no GMOs, no crazy pesticides, definitely no glyphosate, nothing crazy like that. And so they're also taking care of their soil for that 5th generation that I'm hoping to come around. So if you haven't checked them out, be sure to just go to grainsandgrit.com/4generations. Use coupon code grainsandgrit for 10% off your first order. Tell them I sent you, and good news is their grains already come very well sealed and with oxygen absorbers in it already. So already doing well when it comes to storing them long term. Okay, so it's actually only been 30 minutes, but I put this on top of my oven while the oven was preheating. So this is quite a warm environment, and that has doubled. And the Dutch oven has been in here. My oven is preheated. Everything is nice and hot. So we are ready to now show you the next step. But look at all those bubbles. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, so this is a part that may actually seem a little bit shocking to you, but I did multiple tests where I just kind of overdid this, and really it works just fine, just being as simple as this. So what we need to do is we're just going to lightly flour our surface, not too much. You're going to want a little bit of flour on your hands as well, and we're going to dump out the dough. Yeah, and what we're looking for here, that's a nice, where that dough is jiggling a little bit, that's perfect, that's beautiful. You're also possibly going to want one of these dough scrapers here. And then you also need to just go ahead and get you some parchment paper, big enough for this to go on and big enough for you to set it in your Dutch oven. Nutrimel also has one of those slings, which is coming. I don't have it yet, but I'm excited to get it. This will make it so much easier. I don't have to do the parchment paper. And now we're just going to dump this out. Okay. And again, I'm going to lightly hot on my hands. This is feeling really light. So I'm just going to do those stretches again. And then we're going to kind of put it all, we do this where we're folding it and putting seams in down where we're trying to get it kind of tight on the bottom. Then we flip it over. And then I like to kind of just do a bit of this where I'm putting in as much, trying to get some tension on the top here because we want the bread to go up. We don't necessarily want it to go out. So this helps to not flour your surface too much. All right, let me do this again here. A little bit of flour on my hands, just enough to handle it. All right, and that is good. That feels pretty good. I'm kind of being a little gentle of it because I would like to preserve some of the air bubbles. And then from here, use this if you have to, and put this very carefully without losing as much surface tension, without losing that surface tension on your parchment paper. Try to get it more in the center. And then I don't even score it because I find that I'm just not as great at scoring yet. So right now, and I actually like the look of it not being scored. So I'm not even going to score it. And we're going to put this right into our very hot Dutch oven and start to bake it. So let me get that out. Just be very careful. This Dutch oven is crazy hot. And again, if your Dutch oven needs to stay in the oven longer, that's totally fine. Again, the hotter the better. I find I don't like letting this dough rise any here because then the shape gets wonky. Here, I think it kind of just gets that shape in. All right, here, and in we go. Try to get that out. All right, and then we just cover that up. I just leave the parchment paper out, and we're gonna place this immediately into our oven for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, we will take the lid off. So see you back here in 30 minutes. Okay, I misspoke. I said 30 minutes. It actually needs to be 35 minutes. And then after 35 minutes, We're then going to take this out and remove the lid. And oh, that is looking beautiful. And I'm gonna leave it in here for just another 5 minutes to really get that kind of a bit more of a crusty crust. Right, those 5 minutes are up. If you want it a bit longer, that's fine. You can go up to 10, do it however you want for a crust. But dun, 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 here it is, y'all. It is beautiful. Just again, be very careful. I absolutely love how it just naturally broke at the top. That means that it rose beautifully, but there it is. That is beautiful. And now we have to do the hard part to let it cool, but you can hear it. Oh, hear that crust? So we're gonna let it cool for a bit. Now you can go ahead and if you're really impatient and want to get to it, because there's nothing like hot bread out of the oven, I would let it rest for at least 10-15 minutes just to make sure it gets finished baking on the inside and it's not really gooey or anything. But otherwise, just let it cool down completely, which I know is hard to do, and then slice. So I will see you back here when it's completely cooled. We're going to open it up and see what it looks like on the inside. Always the moment of truth that I find, and is where you actually just open it up and see what it looks like in the middle. So I'm actually using my Nakano bread knife here. That's a bit better for these type of crusty breads. But as you can see, there it is right in the middle. And I'm actually quite satisfied with the crumb. That's the holes in here. So I always find that artisan breads are a little bit more dense anyway than a typical sandwich loaf bread. But this does not taste like, oh my word, this is really dense bread. It's actually not. It is very delicious. It slices well. Of course, you know, you can serve this at the table within 10 minutes of baking it and just rip it apart like you're back in medieval times. No judgment here, but this was actually very delicious. It's really great for toast, for sandwiches, those type of things. But this is a slice and this was absolutely delicious. My kids loved it. My husband liked it as well. And as far as storing this, in order to keep it more of a crusty crust, do not seal it up completely where air cannot get into it, because that actually does allow the crust to stay pretty hard. But otherwise, there you go, y'all. Like stupid, crazy, easy bread. All right, y'all, that's it. Absolutely delicious bread. Now, this loaf of bread actually is like one meal for my family, so it does not last a long time. You can, of course, double this recipe, make 2 at a time. This also probably freezes pretty well. I personally have never tried that, but I would assume freezing it like any typical bread loaf, how you like to freeze your loaves of bread. But otherwise, let me know in the comments below if you have tried this recipe. Let me know what you think. And if you're wanting to know just my simple yeast bread loaf recipe that gets you one of those nice sandwich loaves with 100% freshly milled wheat, then be sure to check out this video here. And as always, I hope y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.